Welcome to the Lounge Lizards podcast, presented by Fabrica 5. It's so good to have you here. It's a leisure and lifestyle podcast founded on our love of premium cigars, as well as whiskey, travel, food, work, and whatever else we feel like getting into. My name is Gizmo. Tonight I'm joined by Rooster, Chef Ricky, Grinder, and Bam Bam. And our plan is to smoke a cigar, drink some tequila, talk about life, and of course, have some laughs. So take this as your 159th official invitation to join us and become a card-carrying lounge lizard. Plan to meet us here once a week. We're going to smoke a Cuban cigar tonight, share our thoughts on it, and give you our formal lizard rating. We debate cigar lounge etiquette. We discuss Cuba's continued challenges with power and weather. And a sommelier writes in to take us to task on additive-free spirits, all among a variety of other things for the next 90 minutes. So sit back, get your favorite drink, light up a cigar, and enjoy as we pair El Tequileño Platinum Tequila Blanco with San Cristóbal de la Habana Edición Regional Portugal Saudade. A regional edition from Cuba tonight on the pod. It's the San Cristóbal de la Habana Saudade Edición Regional from Portugal. And it's an Edmundo Boys, a 52 ring gauge cigar by 5 3/8 inches long. And we are back to San Cristóbal regionals.
Dum.
So we'll talk about this, but this was not the cigar we were planning to do tonight, boys. And your friend Gizmo over here had a little oopsie earlier today. So we'll talk about what happened there.
Yowza.
But thankfully, we had these in the tower ready to go, courtesy of a listener, Lizard Pablo. Sent us these quite a while ago, but I didn't slot them in because we had done the Hiramau Malaya. So I was going to punt these to first quarter next year, and here we are now.
How long have you had this in your tower?
These have probably been in my tower about 8 months.
They feel perfect.
Yeah.
Ready to smoke.
Yeah, I hope so.
And the wrapper, to me, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's got that light brown marbling of some dark browns, and there's a little glistening to it.
Mm-hmm.
That was a very beautiful description.
It's beautifully made.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful.
All right, boys, let's cut this thing. See, we're getting on the cold draw and the wrapper.
Oh, and I have a dimple.
Ooh.
Nice. Always a good sign.
My draw is perfect.
Mine's a little tight.
Mine's tight. And I took off like a piece of the wrapper.
I'm a little tight as well.
You're tight as well?
Yeah.
You may want to take a bit of the cap off, a bit more.
I definitely.
Oh, you guys took off.
agree.
Oh,
I took off a good amount.
that's a generous.
You might have to perfect draw him.
Yeah.
So while he's perfect drawing, Bam,
Mhm.
let's talk about flavor notes here.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of cedar. Like
Don't
a lot.
laugh, but I'm getting like this very faint banana pudding type thing in the back.
Yeah, it's
There's
like
something
the vanilla
tapioca.
wafer.
Yeah,
The vanilla
yes,
wafer.
Yes. But soaked in like a cream or something.
Yeah, I'm getting like a little vanilla wafer oat
Something
happening
like
here.
that.
Yeah.
It's very pleasant.
This
Very
is-
light though.
Yeah.
So Grinder, you did a little surgery.
Mhm.
Didn't go too well.
I just got
He's got
I just
tobacco,
got tobacco in my mouth.
in the mouth, on the hands.
I'm struggling right now. It's the first time back in about a month.
Welcome back.
I need a warm-up period. I need to go to the range and pop off a few wedges.
All right, boys, let's light this thing. The San Cristóbal de la Habana Saudade, the Edición Regional for Portugal, released in 2021, announced in 2020, released in 2021. And again, it's an Edmundo in size, a 52 ring gauge cigar by 5 3/8 inches long.
Yeah.
Very good off the first light.
I'm glad you've salvaged the experience.
I mean, it's got some pretty tumultuous fissures at the end here. This is delicious.
Nice on the
Wow.
light.
Mhm.
Honestly,
Different than I expected.
correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a sweetness that's
Yeah.
very, very forward on this thing.
Yeah.
Correct.
Wow.
And creamy.
Right?
It's also very like floral, perfumey.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
No dry fruit that
no.
not
Not
much.
yet, not
Maybe
yet.
like an apricot way in the back, but no dried fruit. I'm sure some of the listeners are happy about that.
So this cigar is the sister, actually, to the Hiramau Malaya, both Edición Regional cigars released in 2020 from San Cristóbal. As we know, they use San Cristóbal a lot to do regional editions. This is the fourth San Cristóbal de la Habana cigar from Cuba we're doing on the pod tonight. The other three, of course, the La Punta, the Hiramau Malaya we just talked about, and the little one, the El Principe, which performed very well
Very well.
quite a little while ago. So we'll go through all those ratings later in the program.
It's very good.
I'm kind of I hope this experience that we're having right now lasts and continues right to the end. This is exquisite.
This is really nice,
It's
and
delicious.
already on the light is miles ahead
Oh,
of the other regional, the Hiramama Malaya that we did.
It's one of the better regionals that I've had
That
in
I've
a
ever
very,
had.
very long time.
Yeah. What year are these?
So these are 2021, late 2021, came out of La Corona.
Do you have a code?
I think it's BRM.
Okay. And the cost?
So the MSRP on these cigars when they were originally released was $22 a cigar. I looked, knowing this question was coming, I looked at Bon Roberts, the latest box of 10 that was sold on September 1st of this year, 2024. The cigar was $48 a piece. So they've more than doubled on the secondary market on Bon Roberts. And then, of course, you have the buyer's premium as well, 15%. So that's, you're probably closer to mid-50s per cigar on Bon Roberts for these. So,
but in other markets,
Robusto,
it's mid-40s, if you can find them. Wow.
Originally $22.
Wow.
So this cigar, like I said, released late 2021, announced in 2020. They come in varnished slide lid boxes of 10 cigars, and there were 8,000 produced. So if we look at the cigar boys, we have the classic San Cristóbal de la Habana band on it, brown, yellow, and gold. And then underneath that, we have a modified regional edition band, which of course says Exclusivo Portugal. And they have the 60th anniversary celebration of Empor SA, which is the Portugal distributor for Habanos SA. So they're celebrating the 60th anniversary of that company. So the word saudade is used in Portuguese to express feelings of melancholy, loss, or nostalgia. So it's not a festive smoking sentiment, a cigar aficionado says here, but it's a reflection of Portugal and its cultural identity. According to Empor, the company that we're talking about, the distributor for Habanos, saudade is, quote, one of the most used words in poetry and romantic music in the Portuguese language.
Chef, is he pronouncing that correctly?
That's Portuguese. Do you speak Portuguese?
I don't. It is very close to Spanish, but yeah.
No
saudade.
No Portuguese over there.
Yeah. No. I love the cheese bread.
Hey, Amsterdam.
I think it's called like...
There's a ship from Portuguese in the ports. I need you to go and rob it. Daniel Day-Lewis, man.
This is really good on the light here. I'm honestly surprised.
What aroma are you getting on the foot?
It's like potpourri. It's very floral to me.
Yeah,
truly.
Not a lot of spice, but it has it's making my nostrils flare.
Yeah.
You know?
But the typical draw and the retrohale, both are just exquisite. They're delicious. I am really blown away right now. It's, for me right now, kind of reminiscent of the Turquinos early on too, in the smoking experience.
Interesting.
A little bit.
I feel like this might be closer to medium than the Turquinos. I feel like the Turquinos was a little bit more
fuller?
mild than this.
Oh.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this has a little bit more flavor.
Well, the flavor type for me is reminiscent.
And more body than the Turquino.
Yeah.
There's still spice too. There's like sweet and spice.
You say like a baking spice?
It's not like a pepper thing for me. Maybe a white pepper, if it's pepper, like a touch.
I'm not getting...
But I'm really not getting...
a touch of pepper.
I'm not
a lot
getting
of pepper.
I wouldn't say peppery. No.
For me, I'm still getting that vanilla wafer banana pudding type thing in the back. In the front, it's a very faint cocoa. Very, very faint, but extremely pleasant.
See,
No pepper at all.
I've been super quiet because this is very unlike anything I've had before on this pod with you guys.
It's quite complex, right?
Yeah. So it's very cedar forward. I'm not getting as much sweet vanilla wafer.
See, I'm not getting cedar
as I was on the cold draw. But now it feels like, that there is I see what you're saying about, the pepper, and it's not as pungent or as straightforward as a black pepper. I don't even want to get into what kind of pepper it could be because some people are just gonna be like,
I don't.
But yeah, there's definitely green peppercorn kind of Espelette thing happening here, and very floral in a perfumey way for me, even on my palate. It's very interesting.
The aroma is fantastic. I think the spice that I'd get is less pepper and more like, as Rooster mentioned, more like a baking spice. It's like a bitter sweet.
It's like a nutmeggy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's there.
Nutmeg can be sweet and peppery.
This is a real surprise right now.
Yeah.
I'm wondering
Honestly.
if maybe because I took too much of my cap off, I'm getting a lot more flavor from the coming through just from the leaves itself.
So
that
you may
I've
be getting more of a
exposed.
burst of smoke in your
Yeah.
draw than we are.
Is your draw like a wind tunnel, or is there still a little resistance?
It's still pretty
Oh,
resistant.
that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's-
still
so
pretty
you're okay
resistant. But I think I'm getting a lot of flavor from the leaves that I've exposed here, rather than going a little bit shorter on the cap there.
I got to say, the smoke output is also very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you get these cigars at
Yeah.
a Habanos, especially the smaller ones, like a Robusto like this, and it doesn't put out a ton of smoke. Where this is, I feel like I'm kind of like a chimney right now.
Yeah.
This is smoking fast though. Like we're gonna burn through this.
Yeah, we have
Literally.
to pace ourselves for sure.
So, in line with the name of the cigar, Saudade, and its importance in the Portuguese language and their music, it's not a festive smoking sentiment, reflection of Portugal, its cultural identity, melancholy, loss, or nostalgia. We have to mention a friend of ours from Portugal, aligning with us smoking this cigar tonight, Stefan Heym, who unfortunately lost his life in a tragic accident a few months ago.
Right.
And Bam and I met Stefan in Havana
Mhm.
on one of our first trips there.
Yeah.
And this guy was Mr. Havana.
It was our very first trip that
It
we
was.
met. He and his beautiful wife, Aura.
Yeah.
They're a great couple. Honestly, I had the pleasure. I met them 3 times all of my trips to Cuba, and they were sophisticated, intelligent, fun to talk to, not highbrow. Their cigar knowledge was off the charts. Their collections were off the charts. And they loved to sit down and talk about cigars and the cigar industry and what was happening in Cuba. And they were so knowledgeable. And it was, it's a tremendous loss.
It is. It's a huge loss for the community.
Yeah.
I actually saw on Reddit, on the Cuban Cigars subreddit, someone actually posted, "Rest in peace, Stefan Heym."
I saw that.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
I was surprised to see that.
I was
Yeah.
too, and it just shows you how small the community is, but also how much of an impact he had on
Yeah.
this community.
Correct.
Stefan was at all the events in Havana for many,
Mhm.
many years with Aura, and
They were a staple there.
they were a staple. They were everywhere. Every year, Aura would throw a birthday party for Stefan in Havana. It was always a big to-do during festival time. And it was just, it's a really, really huge loss for the community, for us personally, because we do
Correct.
know them,
Yeah.
and we knew Stefan, and we really wish Aura the best.
It was
with this loss.
shocking to hear
Yeah.
that day what took place. And it's I was speechless. I didn't know what to say. I sent her a quick note with my condolences.
Same
We were
here.
chatting amongst us. It was shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah, it's a huge loss for the community. Stefan was cool. It was cool. He used to take old
Safes. Mhm.
like bank safes,
Correct.
and he would turn them into high-end humidors.
They were works of art actually when he
They
finished.
absolutely.
Yeah. Each was a unique piece.
Yeah, and he was very important to the community in Portugal, the cigar community. He was a former dentist, I think.
That's right.
Retired dentist.
That's right.
And so we wanted to mention that. And like I said, very coincidental that we're doing this
Mhm.
cigar, the Portuguese regional tonight,
Very
because
appropriate.
this wasn't in the plans for tonight. And here we are. So definitely wanted to mention the loss.
Can you imagine the collection
No,
that he had?
I can't imagine.
We saw pictures of it.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I would see a post, you would literally see, boxes.
Pre-embargo Davidoffs.
He had everything that you could imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything you could imagine.
Amazing.
Yeah, he had one of the most impressive collections I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So terrible loss. All our best to his family, and he was a real brother of the leaf.
Correct.
You know,
God bless
if I-
Aura. Yeah.
Perfect use of that term is to describe Stefan. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we will miss him.
Stefan and Aura, they were not married, I believe, right?
I think they were just long-term
Yeah.
long-term relationship. Yeah.
Well traveled, and they would go even to the
Absolutely.
festival in Italy. That was,
Yes. They had a
somehow
part
related to Habanos.
Yeah, they have a Partagas festival in Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't Lizard Bruce and Lizard Phil?
Yes, both went.
They both went. They
Yeah.
saw. That was the last time they saw Stefan.
Yeah. All our best to Aura and his family, and of course his friends out there. There were many. So, boys, as we're talking here, I've hit the cigar a few times. I've drawn on it, and it's really delicious.
It's requiring no maintenance at all.
Yeah, the construction is impeccable.
It's impeccable. Look at the burn line is razor sharp. Even Grinder's burn is improving dramatically. It's getting better. This is quite the cigar.
Did the poker, did that help?
Oh yeah, it worked wonderfully.
That's
Thanks,
great.
Bam. Yeah. The gorilla hands didn't help though.
No. I
So
tore
Bam
I
over-
tore that thing apart.
Bam overdid it a little bit, and
For the listener, you have to see Bam's hands. They're like you have the hands of a 350-pound linebacker.
Get out of here.
I'm not kidding. You have like humongous hands.
Gizmo and I have the same hands.
it's true.
No way.
Yes.
Same size hands. We've done it.
Really?
We've done it.
Yours are just more robust than.
You're
You
just
know-
more
you know-
formidable.
You know what that means.
Got a lot more vascularity on your hands. Your fucking fingers are.
I use them a lot.
He's a builder.
Correct.
Oh boy.
So, boys, I want to jump into our pairing tonight. We are very lucky to have both entries in our pairing were sent in by listeners. As we know, the cigar was sent in by Lizard Pablo. And we've received another gift from our friend Lizard Mike,
Lizard Mike.
who, if you remember,
Coming through.
the lizard friend of ours who sent in the Tequila Uno Dos Tres,
Correct.
the Uno and the Tres,
Right.
not the Dos, the Uno and the Tres, the Blanco and the Añejo,
Home run.
and we love them.
Yeah.
And we loved them so much, and he sent another tequila for us. This is El Tequileño. Is that correct?
El Tequileño.
El Tequileño. I'll work on it.
You did it.
And he sent a note with it. And he said, Gizmo, another Highland Blanco for you guys that's at the top of my rotation. I put it toe-to-toe with the Uno. And he added a bonus for us, boys. He also sent us some Topo Chico
Wow.
mineral water,
Oh, yes.
which we all have. And he did that to satisfy the delivery minimums for Total Wine.
Love it.
So
And
we've got
and
some.
I thought that was for me.
It is.
Correct.
It is. You have one. You don't have any tequila, but you have this.
Like I don't drink tequila, so he sent the Topo Chico.
So the Topo Chico, I'm doing a little palate cleanse, and now I'm going to
Yes.
try
Oh,
the
let's do that.
tequila. So we have the El Tequileño Platinum Tequila Blanco tonight.
Yep. So it's really important here. So this is a Blanco, but El Tequileño specifies or names it the Platinum or Platino. And the reason they do that is because their Blanco tequila is actually a mixto tequila.
Mm.
So some of you guys may remember me bringing it up prior, but that's usually a tequila that, like a Corvo Gold, right? That we all associate all these like sort of negative experiences with because there's so much additives. So by CRT regulation, you need to have 51% agave sugars in your mixto. El Tequileño, their sort of namesake, the Blanco, not this one, but this is a step up. The Blanco was actually 71% agave sugars, and then they use cane sugar and piloncillo to give it some depth. So I bring all this up because when Giz told me we had this bottle today, I know it's a good tequila, but I totally forgot about my history with it. One of my first trips to Mexico, going to La Capilla, which at the time was the oldest bar in the town of Tequila. And I know the owner passed away in 2020, so I'm not sure if it's still open or not. But there was a cocktail there called La Batanga, and it was Mexican Coke with 4 ounces of that mixto tequila, pinch of salt on the rim, and he'd stir it with a butter knife or the knife he used to cut the limes. And it was delicious stuff. But at the time, I remember being in tequila and thinking, man, like everybody's, telling us how everything must be 100% agave. And here, one of the best cocktails I have, and the oldest bar in Mexico is made with a mixto
Wow.
tequila. But now I learned that yes, it's a mixto tequila, but it's not just any mixto tequila. They really go out of their way to make a quality mixto product, and that Blanco is $22. This Platino is not that. This is more in the $40-$50 range, but it takes It is 100% agave. They do rest this in oak barrels for about a minimum of 14 days. So that's why it's really creamy, rich.
There's a butteriness to this.
Yeah, yeah.
And a slight minerality.
Yep.
And it's very botanical.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also, it's kind of like there's a overarching like sweetness to it, which wraps it all together. It's really
and a little touch
delicious
of citrus,
experience.
A little touch of citrus. I was super. That's why it was the butteriness and the richness and the minerality that I was super excited to have it with the cigar. And I tell you, it's almost like he knew what we were going to smoke. I mean,
I think the pairing is outstanding because that sweetness that I'm getting in the tequila works beautifully with the cigar. Outstanding.
So these guys have been making tequila since 1959. It's now third generation. And this brand in particular, it's kind of like one of the big, they call it the hidden secrets, and one of the hidden secrets of Mexico. Because there locally it's been big, and now here, I think in 2018, Paradise Spirits or 2013 bought them out. So they've been able to expand their operations and grow the business and almost triple production of what they used to do. So I think now we're seeing a lot more of it here in the States. And it wasn't until maybe this year that I started seeing it again, and it completely, just kind of escaped my mind that I had this in Mexico. It was that mixto tequila, and brought back some fun.
So I've seen this in Bottle King.
Yeah.
It's all around us. We can get it anytime, anywhere. I will be chasing this bottle.
And Lizard EDF, who we talk about a lot on the podcast.
Just make sure it's the platinum and not the blanco.
Platinum, okay.
Yeah, it's not, because the blanco is the mixto, which again isn't a bad tequila, but this is not that.
But this is special stuff.
Lizard EDF's got a bottle that he kind of walks around with. Yeah, it's like a nursing bottle. For
That's where I first heard of it. And obviously, Lizard Mike's on the opposite coast. He's in California, and he sent this on a whim, with how much we love the Tequila Uno.
Did Lizard EDF pay under $20 for that bottle? I think it's so inexpensive.
The Blanco.
Yeah.
The Blanco
not
is
the platinum
$22.
The Blanco, correct.
Yes. The Blanco is $22.
So this is the first time I've tried this maker through his, through his bottle sitting at the lounge. It is really quite good. For the price, it's surprising.
It's insane.
Yeah.
But, and I think that's why they do it. It kept it accessible in the town of tequila in Mexico over all these years. And it's just kind of interesting because I think mixto as a category has been so spoken about negatively because of those Cuervos, the Cuervos of the world, that these, unless you had this prior in Mexico or you know anything about their history, you don't realize there's someone actually that goes out of their way to make a quality mixto. And they're also making quality 100% agave distillates.
Yeah.
So
impressive.
It's good stuff.
And really this tequila with this cigar is perfect.
Yeah.
They're a perfect match for each other.
For me, it's that sweetness pairing that works beautifully. They
Yeah.
kind of work off of each other a bit.
What's the Mexican Coke? How is it different?
I think it's made with
corn, sugar.
Yeah,
with,
as opposed
with
to
100% cane sugar.
As opposed to high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, I heard, I mean, I might be wrong, but that's the original recipe of Coke is what Mexican Coke is now?
No, I think the original recipe had a few other differences. But Mexican sodas in general are all made with 100% cane sugar, like all the Jarritos, a lot of the Mexican Fanas, Mexican Sprite, Mexican Coke, they're all made with 100% sugar.
I mean, you're practically the mayor of Cancun. How have you not had that?
He may have. Yeah. I made too much sugar. It's a lot of sugar.
Yeah, you haven't had Coke in Mexico.
I haven't had a lot of Coke. I mean,
we got an 8-ball in the parking lot waiting for you.
Oh my God.
You're crazy.
But the Jarritos Sangria is my favorite. So I love that.
So, boys, as I mentioned, this cigar was a total accident today. So, for a keen listener who listens to our podcast a lot, would hear on the intro when I do the Hey Lizards Gizmo here thing that I mentioned the Monte Cristo Open Master.
Correct.
Which was a cigar that we were planning to do tonight.
It's fraud you're committing.
And then about 3 hours before we were supposed to record, I realized I didn't have them in my tower. Pagoda has them.
He's got them hostage.
And he's not coming tonight.
Right.
So then we pivoted to this cigar, which thankfully Lizard Pablo sent in, and we had in the tower, and it worked out. Obviously, because we're talking about Stefan, but I got to tell you,
This is better than that cigar.
I think so.
I've had that Open Eagle many times. This is. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
hands
miles
down.
ahead.
This is much better.
Which is good, especially given
Very
the price
happy.
point.
Oh yeah.
So I'm, that's probably the first time I've ever done that, and how 159 episodes. And I have to tell you, I have had
second time.
Second time?
Second time.
I don't remember.
We did the Little Hammer. That was on the fly episode.
Oh, that's right.
That's
That's
right.
right. I left the
And
cigars at home.
That was also a banger.
You're being
So
watched,
You're 2
Giz.
for 2. Man.
Okay.
You're 2 for 2.
Well, we know you have such high integrity. These things bother you. We know that.
Let me tell you,
That's why we
I
love
have
you.
had,
But
and I know you
hey,
guys know.
You're hitting 100, man.
I am.
It's-
I am. Both of the mistake cigars have worked out, but I had a hell of a last few days that has caused my brain to be complete mush. I went into my laundry room on Sunday night a couple days ago, and I noticed a drip above my
Yeah.
washing machine, and I was very confused as to what it was. And I called the plumber out. He came the next day, and the plumber started looking around. He said, "I'm not touching this. Call a remediation company." Right? I'm like, "Well, that's weird. Like, what do you think it is?" He said, "It's definitely a pipe leaking from above." So the remediation company comes out, starts tearing into the wall, and we find that there has been a
Slow
drain
leak.
pipe that
Mhm.
that cracked in my kitchen and permeated the floor of the kitchen into the laundry room downstairs, into my smoking garage. And after 2 days, I now have to replace my entire kitchen.
Yep.
I have to put a full new setup in the laundry room, all the walls, and now I can't smoke in my garage.
Correct, because you have a big hole in the
Because I have a
corner.
massive hole in the garage.
Fuck.
So it went from seeing a couple drops coming off a pipe to I have to put in an entire kitchen, can't smoke in my house, and the laundry room is a
Well,
complete disaster.
I heard Mrs. Gizmo's very happy.
She's thrilled.
She gets a new kitchen.
I'm devastated that this is happening, and
I
she's
know.
talking about what kind of vibe the new kitchen's going to be.
I am ashamed, or maybe not so ashamed to admit, I've never done laundry.
What?
I
Ever?
I haven't ever done laundry.
You've never done laundry once
Not-
in your life?
Maybe once.
Wow.
So I know my wife doesn't listen to the pod, so I can say this.
Mrs. Rooster, don't judge me.
She always tells me, whenever you do the laundry, you mess it up. So don't do laundry. I'm like,
Correct.
perfect.
I'm
That's
out.
just great. So
You know what happens with me? I try to help, or I think I'm helping. So I start a load, and then I leave the house.
Yeah, I mean, I put-
and then
I put
my
the-
wife forgets, or maybe I didn't tell her that there's a load of clothes in the laundry, and now we got to rewash them because they
Yeah.
were sitting in the front loader for a day.
I put the
Yeah.
dark and the light in the same, it's
yeah,
just
I don't
laundry,
think
right?
anybody
So
separates anymore.
I don't
No,
know.
I don't
really?
separate.
I don't know,
she
nobody
gets
separates shit.
so upset. You can't put this together with this. This doesn't go in the dryer. I'm like, honey, I have no idea. I just throw everything in the dryer. She's like, no, this cannot go in the dryer. I'm like, why? You want it to dry now? It's gonna
That's how
shrink.
you
It's
get
gonna
out
shrink.
of laundry duty, though. Just keep messing it up.
Exactly. That's my point. Mess it up.
I've done all my own laundry since I was about 6 years old.
So they started tearing it open.
Yeah.
And it was in a concentrated area, but over time, did they eventually take more and more away of it?
Well, we thought it was a minor issue, and it kept growing into a bigger issue. And what we discovered is the drain pipe that was leaking was behind a wall in my kitchen, so I could have never seen it. And there wasn't a lot of mold, so I don't think it's been happening for that long. But it's
But
the
is
water
it,
moves
is it
fast.
the kitchen sink?
Kitchen sink drain, and the dishwasher also drains into that. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's
Lots
the
of lot
high
of water.
pressure,
Sure.
high temperature from
I mean,
that.
that's the most used
Yeah,
sink in the
course.
house.
sure.
Absolutely.
Sure. So it's created an absolute disaster to the point where, we were supposed to record on Monday night. We punted to today. We're recording on a Wednesday now.
Was it a
And,
metal lead pipe?
Yes, it was a galvanized pipe.
Yeah. See, I mean,
Yeah.
now they don't use that.
Yeah, they
use
use PVC.
PVC.
Those corrode. The
Yeah.
thing of it is, it could take 30 years for that pipe to corrode
Right.
from the inside out. So it's
Yeah.
a ticking time bomb.
Well,
And-
a lot of times it's happened to, like, I was telling Giz about this. We had to get the roof drain, like the main drain, to
Mhm.
be cleared. And we had an old lead pipe. And the guy, when he put the snake in, he accidentally punctured the lead pipe,
Oof.
which went into one of the closets in the guest bedroom. nobody goes there, so we didn't even know about it. So every time you would run the sink,
Mm.
the water was seeping in or leaking,
Oof.
from there.
Wow.
And it took a while to realize that. And
Yeah.
water. I mean,
Home ownership does have its drawbacks.
Yeah.
From
This
time
is-
to time.
I try to be like a proactive homeowner. Like I put a roof on before I needed to. I
Mhm.
put a new air conditioning unit in before I needed to. Reinforced the deck before I needed to. Did a new electrical service. So this being
You
caught off guard by this is something like
there isn't anything you or anyone else could ever have done about that
yeah,
because you just can't see it until you see it.
And of course, now it's terrifying
till
how
the
much
water
this
shows
is going to
itself.
cost, and not knowing if
yeah.
the insurance company's going to get involved because I haven't heard from them. So
Yeah.
it's just been a mess. But anyway, my point in this whole story is we were supposed to do a different cigar. I
Mhm.
totally spaced on it, and thankfully we have this delicious cigar with us tonight.
Yeah. So look, for the listener, if you're going through anything like this and you have a good homeowners and policy, the thing to do is file a claim as quickly as possible. Don't wait. Don't hesitate.
So I discovered the leak on Sunday night.
Yeah.
Plumber came out Monday afternoon.
Okay.
Remediation company came Monday evening.
Great.
And I called the homeowners while the remediation company
The
was there.
insurance.
And
You called the
start,
insurance.
yeah, I called homeowners insurance
Great.
to start the
Process.
claim. Still haven't heard from the adjuster, unfortunately, because they're so backed up. But
Mhm. That's okay.
we'll see what they cover and what
Yeah.
happens.
As
But
long as you have
it's
your
terrifying.
claim in, you're good.
any damage that's caused by the result of that will be covered.
Typically, yeah.
Typically, yeah.
It
I mean,
depends on the
should be.
terms and conditions of your policy.
It's typically covered
Yeah.
because I mean, they're not going to cover
Sure.
the actual hole in the pipe or the plumbing issue,
That's right.
but they'll cover any damage caused.
The
because
vicarious
of-
damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to catch it fast, because what I was told by the remediation company is if there's a ton of mold, that's an indication that it's been happening for too long, and they could kind of look at that as negligence or a lack of maintenance or keeping your eye on the ball. So thankfully, there was just a lot of moisture. There wasn't a lot of mold. There was maybe 2 square feet or 3 square feet of mold total.
Yeah, you did
So
the
I
right
should be
thing.
okay.
You're right on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I won't be smoking at home for a while, boys.
No.
Might have to get one of those outdoor tents with a little heater. Put it in the backyard.
You'll be doing your pod edits right here at the club.
I will.
All right.
I will. So, boys, we're coming to the end of the first third here on the San Cristóbal de la Habana Saudade Edición Regional Portugal. What's everybody thinking?
This is a fantastic cigar. It tastes very Cuban-esque. I don't know how to it's like a very
Do you think it tastes
flowery,
like
floral.
a QD a little bit?
There's a little bit
Like
of that.
QD
A little bit.
DNA,
a little bit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
right?
I think it's a little more flavorful than
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you try the QD, the 52 that we did?
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
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 It's a great cigar.
I think I gave it a 10.
Actually, Senator just ordered a box of those, and they came in
They
and
look
they
great.
looked beautiful
Yeah, they
from
look
Havanas.
perfect.
Looked great. Yeah, beautiful box.
This experience right now, I don't remember such a delicious Cuban cigar on this podcast. It's really it's high praise, but this is something else right now.
This should be a regular production
Oh,
San Cristóbal.
absolutely.
The flavor is super intense, and now coming into the second third, I'm getting really bright pops of apricot.
That was there
And,
earlier
yeah,
for me, and it
now
continues to
I'm
be.
getting it.
Yeah.
The heavy cedar sort of floral has now
Mhm.
gone to the background, and I'm getting really bright pops of apricot, which with a sip of this tequila.
As I think about this and the cost for this thing, it's that's really a huge disappointment.
The MSRP at 22 sounds brilliant.
Why don't we just assume that's what it is?
let's rate it based on the
Yeah,
MSRP.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Can we do
mean,
that?
At close to 50 for a Robusto of this size, I mean, even at how delicious this is, I mean, it does put it put you in a position where you're not going to run out and chase,
No.
even trying to find a box of these at that price.
No way.
I mean, that's what's difficult about it, is it's like, maybe I'd have a box just to keep for a few years and just have one
Yeah.
every once in a while.
They
But
come in a box of 10.
they come in a box of 10.
So that's $500
Yeah.
plus your shipping and so on.
Yeah.
The second band on this reminds me of that Sir Henry,
Yes.
right?
The other regional.
The other regional, Ramon.
Yeah. Ramon Ionis. Yeah. Yeah. This is really good so far.
Rooster, what are you calling out here on this thing?
Are you still getting the nutmeg thing?
No.
I think it's dissipated.
I think it's
Yeah, I'm not
dissipated too.
getting
You know
that.
what I'm getting that I think tying to what you said about it tasting very Cuban-esque grinder is I'm getting a little bit of like the twang on the front of my tongue, like a
Yeah.
little bit of a salty bite
Mhm.
that's happening, which only happens with some Cubans, not all.
Yeah, that's true.
I think the floral aroma is what's hearkening the Cuban-esque comment. The apricot, that's an interesting one because when you said it, I could taste it.
Yeah, it's definitely there.
Right as Giz just said, as we're just finishing up the first third, and I take that draw, it was almost like a pop rock.
Yeah.
Just how intense it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's great. A lot of flavor here, very intense. And
And
then
the flavor,
the
like,
tequila,
almost-
the tequila for a blanco, there's no heat on this tequila whatsoever.
Zero
It
heat.
is so creamy.
it's awesome.
amazing.
And it just freaking balances everything.
For how creamy the tequila is, I love the nose of it.
Yeah.
It still has like a very earthy floral thing, but when it hits
it's
your
very
palate,
bright.
yes, it's bright. But when it
on the
hits your
nose.
palate,
It's
very
rich and creamy.
rich and
Yes.
smooth.
Yes.
And like you said, there's absolutely no heat or bite to it at all.
You getting any cocoa on the retrohale in this thing? I get a very faint cocoa toward the end of my retrohale on this thing. Very faint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a little
I
bit.
could see that. Yeah.
You know what's nice too is the draw and the retrohale both linger very long.
Yeah, it's got a nice long finish. This is the kind of cigar that I have a hard time smoking at a slow pace. I just want to go through this because I want that.
Try a sip of the
Want that
Topo
flavor.
Chico to
Cleanse
clear
the palate.
Yeah,
Let's do
that's
that.
really
Rooster.
good.
Yeah, Topo Chico's great. I had this a lot when I was in the Dominican Republic with La Aurora.
You needed your seltzer fits.
Have to.
Yeah.
And they were demanding, as we were doing the tasting stuff that I talked about on that episode, the tasting seminar, Cigar Institute. They wanted us to be sipping seltzer, carbonated water, and smelling freshly roasted coffee beans to clear the nose.
Oh, wow.
So we would clear the palate with this, and we'd clear the nose
Nice.
with freshly roasted coffee beans, and it was a really interesting experience.
I will say that I'm happy that Topo Chico is not cold. I like the room temperature experience.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
That's nice.
So, boys, it's now time to go to some listener email. We're going to give Lizard Bo Lizard of the Week. And this is quite an email. So the subject is all lizards additive-free accountability.
Oh, shit.
Hey, lizards, you can call me Lizard Bo. Been listening for a while now and really enjoy your podcast. I would like to bring your attention to a few things about additive-free spirits. Let me just say, this is wild. Let me just begin by saying I have worked as a sommelier for almost 15 years in 3 Michelin star restaurants. I did my somm training at the German Wine School in Koblenz, Germany, and have a concentration in beverage from Johnson and Wales University.
Holy.
So, okay, first paragraph.
Legitimacy, check.
Uh-oh.
Wow.
Here we go. This might be some Lizard Chef Ricky accountability here tonight. Additive-free
Let's do
tequilas is a hot and trendy subject right now. There are 4 additives that are allowed by the CRT, which is the Tequila Regulatory Council, as Ricky has mentioned a few times, to be used in tequila production: glycerin, oak extract, caramel coloring, and a sugar-based syrup. As long as it's less than 1%, the producer does not have to specify if additives are used. Above 1%, of course, they have to state it on the bottle. For the most part, it's usually kept to less than 1%. Nothing on that list of additives stated above seems relatively harmful when compared to a California wine. In California, there are 12 common additives, and there's a link below. He sent a link to an extensive list of additives that are allowed to be used in California. He lists some that I'm not going to read because I can't pronounce them, of course. I also must mention the high levels of arsenic in the Napa Valley and its water soils. He listed he linked another Napa County article on its additives.
Where's Senator?
As someone who has worked in a few of these wineries, I can tell you firsthand that they all use it. Stag's Leap, Camus, Papillon, or any Orange Swift wines for that matter. They all have additives that we cannot pronounce. Additives are not just in wine or tequila. They're almost in everything. Cognacs, rums, single malts, and I've saved the best for last. Unless you are consuming 0 dosage champagnes, even champagne has added sugars to the final assemblage. Additive-free, quote-unquote, is a marketing attempt to get people to try new, lesser-known tequilas. What people fail to mention is most of the additives are natural additives, especially compared to what's used in American wine production. My point in all of this is drink what you like, keep an open mind, and don't be persuaded by marketing. Or don't be persuaded by Chef Ricky, maybe.
Or peer pressure.
One can argue there are more additives in a can of Coca-Cola, apropos to our conversation earlier, than a bottle of Casamigos.
Wow.
Thank you kindly for your time, Lizard Bow.
I disagree.
That's a hot take.
I like the email.
That's why
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, great,
your
great,
what are
great
your thoughts,
email.
Ricky?
Obviously, great source. Casamigos, I mean, I hate not to put any pressure on anyone that enjoys it, but it's clearly shit. I mean,
No peer pressure.
You taste
No peer
it,
pressure.
and it's not there. So yes, everything he stated is true. I'm just curious to know or understand tequila matchmakers' additive-free labeling. I don't know, if they're following CRT standards or if they're even stricter or what the case is. But yeah, I think I don't know that anyone is labeling or putting on their bottles, even if they are over 1%, that those additives are listed, because it's clear when you taste a tequila that's loaded with it, you could tell the difference, whether it's Clase Azul, whether it's Casamigos.
Well, you can certainly tell the morning after.
Yeah,
if you're drinking
or
copious
any
amounts of
other
it.
diffuser tequila. I mean, I just, look, whether it's a matter of, paying the inspector off or whatnot, so you could avoid having to do certain things, maybe that's happening. But I mean, for me, it's clear at stay when you taste an additive, tequila that isn't additive free, quote unquote additive free, versus one that has a ton of it. To me, there's it is a clear separation there. And I think even for you guys could taste the difference, because we've had some tequilas and gone back to some others, and it's just, it doesn't hit the same. On the palate, it's cloyingly sweet. It's not fun to drink.
It's honestly overwhelming.
It feels artificial. It tastes
Yeah.
artificial. So yeah, I mean, if everybody's in the same, playing field with 1%, then something's going on there.
But isn't
it's pretty clear.
Lizard Bow, what he's stating is that even when it's called additive free, they're still adding some.
Well, for it to not go on the bottle, you're allowed up to 1%. But with that being said, using Casamigos again as an example, there's nowhere on their bottle that's listed what additives they have, or Clase Azul. And to me, it tastes like the additives are there. Now that's also because those are diffuser tequilas. So that has a lot to do with it as well. So maybe in the diffuser process, because you're stripping, you're not really using agave, you're actually using agave nectar to make tequila. Maybe because it's missing some of those critical elements, the additives come through more. I'm not sure.
But are the additives put in for flavor?
For flavor, for body,
for preservation, maybe
flavor, body, and coloring. I don't think it's for preservation. Maybe when it comes to wine, it's there for preservation, but not on the spirit side.
Well, I got to say, I mean, I don't necessarily have a horse in the race. I just prefer these tequilas that have, no additives or less additives than the ones that you're mentioning now that are obviously, ripe with additives. But it's pretty cool to me that we have a sommelier who's working at Michelin star restaurants, who's entered the conversation. So I love hearing from listeners like this.
You know, his email is very democratic. Let everyone drink what they want. Yeah. But for me, I've practically abandoned Scotch. I don't remember the last time I had bourbon unless we're doing it on this podcast. I am right now completely focused on tequilas and cognacs and Armagnacs because, of course, the experience that we've had here. I don't reach for those spirits any longer because of the incredible access to the tequilas that we've had.
Yeah, and I think that for me...
And the clean tequilas they're a revelation. They are a true revelation. They've changed the way I drink.
I agree.
They changed the way I drink.
I think there's a couple components for me that I'm right there with you in that I find that you can get some really amazing, you mentioned tequila, cognac, Armagnac, even rum.
Of course.
Very reasonably priced.
Yes.
And what I like
the
about them...
Floridicano, of course, right?
Floridicano.
Yeah, that's available anywhere.
Yeah, you can get them anywhere.
And it's delicious.
Or even the Brugal that we did.
Brugal was good. Extra, though.
Yeah, the extra Viejo.
If you can get that.
Vieja, excuse me.
Yeah.
the thing is too, in addition to the price component, compare that to some of the single malts we drink.
Mhm.
A lot of them are, expensive,
Yeah.
right?
But these
Macallan, I mean,
tequilas-
is $80 or $90
It's
a
true,
bottle
but the
now.
tequilas are now climbing.
They're climbing.
Tequila Ocho is not a cheap spirit, but worth every dollar.
But what I like too is how I feel the morning after drinking the spirits that we're talking about,
There you
compared to the Balvenie or Macallan
Yeah.
or some of these others. You just feel, or the bourbons, of course.
Yeah.
You just feel better.
It kind of gives me a pick me up at night when I'm with the guys at the club or alone somewhere. It's something else. It's different.
But in line with what Lizard Bo's saying here, as far as the democratic nature of all this, what I love is the variety of emails we get, the variety of spirit recommendations. It's like the listeners are going through a very similar journey that we're going through, and positive feedback, negative feedback on what they're tasting. It's like we're all kind of learning about this together. Obviously, we've gone very heavy on the agave stuff, even mezcal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I love hearing from listeners like this. Lizard Bo, thanks so much for writing us. Like I said, he's going to win Lizard of the Week this week. We do this every week. You out there can win Lizard of the Week. All you have to do is send us an email like Lizard Bo did, a voice memo, a comment on Instagram, YouTube, whatever you choose. Just give us some feedback. Write us. Tell us what you're thinking. Tell us what you're smoking. And you can also win some stuff from us. So I'm going to send Lizard Bo a little package from the Lounge Lizards HQ.
I mean, I do agree with Bo when he says, drink what you like. I mean, after all,
Sure.
one person's taste will differ from somebody else's. So,
Well, that also goes to our cigar
sure.
experience. Smoke what you like.
Yeah.
We often find ourselves looking at some guys in a club, at our various clubs that we go to, and we're judgmental.
I don't look at guys at the club.
Well,
sorry.
No, but it is true. And I think that, very similar to what we're saying about spirits. I mean,
turn his mic off, all right?
The democratic nature of cigars, or different cigars at various price points, different origins that we've tried.
Yeah.
That have turned out being great, completely unexpectedly.
Yeah.
I mean, even tonight we're smoking a San Cristóbal de la Habana. Aside from the El Príncipe, the other two we've done on this podcast were some of the worst that we've done among Cuban cigars. So
Correct.
even to go back to this, which Lizard Pablo so generously sent us, like, this cigar is smoking brilliantly. So there's a lot of merit in that.
Yeah.
This cigar was perfect, but the wrapper just cracked.
You're not smoking it right.
Yeah, I guess.
You're gripping it too hard.
You need to keep practicing.
Got to be gentle.
I remember my first beer.
All right, boys, let's move to another Lizard email. This one's from Lizard John from Boise. He always writes us. I love hearing from Lizard John. He always has a good question for us. He says, "Hi, Giz. Hope you've had a good week. I've got another question for the Lizard panel. This one is involving cigar lounge etiquette. Do you feel..."
I love this shit, by the way.
I do too.
I love these emails.
I love these
Let's
questions.
go.
Do you feel it's appropriate for a patron to bring a cigar from home into a shop or lounge to smoke as long as they purchase a cigar during their visit? I, for one, believe this is perfectly fine, but I've heard opinions to the contrary. I would love to hear your thoughts. As always, cheers to you guys and best wishes. Cheers to you guys and best wishes. Lizard John from Boise.
I have to start off. Absolutely appropriate. If you're not a member and you're walking in as a customer, bring your own cigar, but absolutely always buy a cigar from the house at a minimum.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you are going to pay a cutting fee, probably.
And you're going to piss them off.
Yeah, and they won't be very happy.
Rightfully.
Yeah. Buy a cigar, support the shop, smoke that cigar, and smoke your cigar.
And I don't think most shops care either. Like if you do buy a cigar, it makes no difference to them whether that cigar you smoke in the lounge is one from their humidor or not.
There
Right?
are,
so long as you buy,
As long as you buy one.
Yeah.
What's funny is I heard a story this email is very appropriate timing wise from Lizard John, because last week I met a new member at our lounge here at 1086 who was telling me he went to another lounge, walked in the humidor, bought like a high-end $20 or $30 cigar, felt it was a little wet, put it in his bag, and pulled out one he brought with him. And they were very unhappy that he did
even
that.
though he purchased a cigar.
Even though he purchased the cigar.
That's a problem.
And it wasn't a Cuban. It wasn't like a Cuban, non-Cuban thing. It was a New World cigar. And the lounge owner or shop owner was very unhappy that
They didn't smoke the cigar they purchased?
Yes.
Even though they purchased the cigar prior to the lighting of the cigar that they brought in.
That's just
Yes.
insanely unreasonable.
And that makes no sense.
That's
That
crazy.
retailer needs to have a talking to.
I agree.
I think maybe depends on how he inspected that cigar. Because if he's looking at, if the owner sees that it's real, maybe his view is that it's not wet, or
But he kept the cigar though.
Maybe
Yeah.
you're implying I don't keep my humidor at the right.
But that's
I mean,
a
yeah.
personal preference.
But he didn't report back to the
No.
owner.
I was gonna say it could have been worse. He could have made a scene and gone up to the
absolutely.
counter and say, "Hey, this cigar is not great. Can I change it out?" Or
Right.
that looks. I think he did the right thing.
I agree.
Listen, every time I go to a place that I'm unfamiliar with, I always buy a cigar, and I always assume
Same.
that the humidity of that cigar is going to be higher than how I like to smoke my cigars.
It will be.
It will be, but that's always my assumption. So I always buy a nice cigar. I put it in my bag. I might even buy the same cigar I'm going to smoke if they have Padrones or Davidoffs or aging room or something that I'm going to smoke. But I always do this.
Yeah.
I've never had a conversation with a shop owner about it, but I've heard stories that this is pretty prevalent, that
I've
they
never
get
heard
pissed
that.
off.
Yeah, you know, to me, that's just a sign that the shop itself may not be doing well, and sometimes shop owners internalize all their stresses.
We were no. We were members at our previous
that's
lounge,
right.
one of the most successful cigar shops in the country.
I forget the cigar Nazi.
Please.
Exactly.
That may have something to do with it, depending on where you are, but not always.
Yeah, I just think it's in the shop owner's best interest to be as welcoming as possible, because as cigar smokers, we're running out of places where we can smoke and we could smoke in peace. And now the weather is getting cold, so you never know who's coming in. But yes, if you're going in, you're not a member, absolutely always buy a cigar from the shop. And I think after doing that, it doesn't really matter what cigar you're smoking. I mean, if you're really gonna have a hawk eye on me and watch what cigar I'm gonna light,
That's disturbing.
Yeah,
And
that's
you don't want to
disturbing.
be there.
Yeah.
You know?
No,
Yeah.
no.
And that's where I was going to go is what a turnoff to ever go back there.
Yeah, agreed.
And patronize that shop again.
So
right?
that's the exact opposite of what hospitality should be.
Agree.
If there are any retailers listening, be hospitable to your customers.
1000%.
They will always come back.
I think that's indicative of this. Like, maybe that guy, the owner, is not a cigar smoker.
Yeah.
Do you know a cigar smoker that owns a shop that would say, okay, you can come in here. If you buy a stick, that's great. You have to buy a stick, but you can't smoke any other stick. No one would say that. No one who smokes cigars themselves, because the reality is when you come in, maybe you just have a different feeling when you start to
I mean, the other thing I can think of as far as scenarios in which a shop owner would get pissed off are two. Number one, you go in the humidor and you buy a cheap petite Corona, and then you go in your bag and you pull out like a Padron Diplomatico, like a double Corona, and all of a sudden,
or a Davidoff Year of the Dragon.
You've paid for like a 30-minute experience, and now you're sitting in there for 2 hours. Maybe that could be a little bit of a rub. I understand, but
that shouldn't be ever. That should never factor in as a business owner, regardless of what your customers are buying. If it's a $5 cigar or a $50 cigar, they're buying a product from you. Be hospitable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or go up to them. Or go up to them instead of chastising what they're smoking and saying, "Hey, listen, you've been here for a couple hours. You only purchased one small cigar. Would you mind going in and just picking out another cigar
That's
that
okay.
you'd love, just to kind of align
Rooster would
with,
punch him, but I think that's okay.
I mean, Rooster, we haven't heard from yet.
Yeah, no, outside of that, I'll say maybe post a small sign or something by the register. That if you're bringing a cigar from outside, then the minimum purchase should be $20 or whatnot. But I think any well-educated lizard is gonna not take advantage of the situation and go ahead and do the right thing because it's the right thing, and you're supporting the hobby, you're supporting the ecosystem of what we do. So yeah, it's in your best interest to make a decent purchase.
Yeah.
So my other scenario that I wanted to ask you about, of course, we're smoking a Cuban cigar tonight on this episode.
Oh, I know where you're going.
Is here in the United States, going into an unknown place, purchasing a cigar in the humidor, sitting down in their lounge, and pulling out a Cuban cigar from your bag.
I've done that.
Do you feel that's inappropriate?
No.
If I purchase
except
cigar,
for
I
one
don't
place
think
that
it's
we know.
appropriate.
Of course, that's why
Only
I'm asking.
there. Yeah. Now, honestly,
and I would do it only there
because you like punching people. So again, I don't think that should factor in at all. You guys know, I play a lot of espionage. In my travels, I find a lot of shops I go in. I actually feel uncomfortable not buying a cigar at a place.
I would never think to do that.
Me
It's
neither.
just
Not doing it. You mean, yeah.
I mean,
It's a
even
must.
even sometimes when you go into a place and it's a nice, kind of seating area,
Mhm.
and you go in the humidor and they don't have a great selection, I will still buy a cigar or two.
Of course.
1000%.
Even if I'm going to come home and give it away, or
Me
I don't
too.
want to smoke it,
Yeah.
or I'll just reach for something that I think might be
Correct.
in line with a decent cigar.
Yeah.
I actually
I still
love,
purchase.
I love
Yeah.
those times because that's when I get different cigars that I never would have gotten.
That's true.
Because you're like, okay, I have to buy something.
I'm here.
I'm here. I have to
gonna
buy
smoke.
something. May
Yeah.
as well try something I've never had before. Out of the blue, and sometimes you get lucky and find
It's
something
like
special.
going to a restaurant and bringing your own food.
Yeah.
Did you do that?
No.
Or
Well,
or
don't
what
do that.
what happens more frequently actually is people bring in their own beverage,
Mm.
right? And then you try to ask them, like,
Wow.
are you gonna buy? Yeah, it happens.
strange.
It doesn't happen. It's mostly one location where it happens at, and yeah, sometimes people just get annoyed. I'm like, really? Like, you don't understand why that's
Well,
not
unless
a good thing.
if the restaurant does not have a liquor license, then people bring in.
No, but
whatever
it
to
does.
drink.
It does. Yeah. So it's but yeah, I just think it's a good move to buy a stick when you go
Always.
into a lounge. and
Always.
Support, strike up conversation with the
Mhm.
owner, and I think the ownership needs to be
Oh.
a lot more hospitable because
great
then
point.
you might make it. You might
want
turn
them to
this
come
person
back.
into a member.
So here's an interesting thing. So in a lot of the shops I visit, they don't have the cigars that we love, Davidoffs or Padrones, or now the aging room that we're really deep into, or the Oliva V series that they don't have. Some
Sure.
of these places don't have. So I buy an inferior cigar that I feel is inferior for me.
Like a baccarat.
Yeah. Cognac flavor. But I end up, I talk to the owner or the shop manager. Why no Padrones? I asked them why.
Yep.
Why no Davidoffs? Why not this cigar? Why not that cigar?
And sometimes they just may not know any better, and you spark this
Most of them,
conversation.
a lot of them don't know any better,
Yeah.
which is sad.
And next thing you know, you're a consultant for
Yeah.
them.
Others, yeah, right. And the others don't have the financial capacity to buy the minimum buys through these wholesalers, so that they're kind of limited. So you learn about
The
regional shops in your area, who has what and what they can do and can't do.
Look, if you're a cigar store owner and you have not heard of Padrones or Davidoffs,
No, it's not
You
that
sh-
they. Yeah, I agree with you. It's not
You
that they
know.
haven't heard of it. They just either can't afford the minimum buys.
Yeah, they lack access to it.
that's
Exactly.
possible, and they
Yeah.
might not.
It's more than possible. That's a
Davidoff,
pretty
especially
common thing.
Davidoff, will not give you.
Yeah,
If somebody else is selling Davidoffs in the area, you're
Correct.
not going
Yeah, they have a
you're
radius
not going to be
clause.
able
yeah,
to sell it.
that's
to
right.
sell
So it goes
Davidoffs.
back to what Giz said earlier. I'll buy an inferior cigar in that case to be respectful. Then I'll pull out my own cigar.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many other brands of New World cigars that you can
Oh yeah,
smoke that are very good.
And I mean, as we go along here in the pod, I mean, we keep finding these cigars that are great.
I
you know?
urge every retailer that's listening to this to go to our ratings list. You'll find incredible New Worlds at extremely low prices that'll knock the socks off your customers.
Yeah, and they're easy
knock
to
the
get.
socks off your
And
customers.
they're easy to get.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and most of them are very helpful if you ask them for a recommendation for
Yeah.
something that you haven't tried. You could ask them, what do you
Correct.
recommend? These are the kind of cigars I smoke, and maybe you could recommend something.
And they can
to
call
me.
Giz and he can place the orders.
There you
Yep.
go.
Perfect. You want to get my phone number out too?
Correct.
1-800 Giz.
Correct.
Yeah. So to answer, John's question here, I don't think there's any scenario where it's inappropriate to pull out your own cigar if you go in and buy something. I think
Agreed.
go in and buy a nice price cigar. Don't buy like a factory second for $2. Buy a decent cigar at a fair price, and then sit down and smoke what you want. And if you have a rub, then you know that shop's not for you.
Correct.
You know.
Yep.
Good advice.
All right, boys, we're coming to the last third here on the San Cristóbal de la Habana Saudade Edición Regional Portugal. What do you guys think?
This cigar is, for me, still displaying a really delicious sweetness in combination with what I'm drinking. I'm getting a dessert experience after dinner with this combination. I wouldn't need to have anything sweet after dinner. This is really special pairing tonight.
I tell you, while I love this tequila, I'm almost envious of Rooster's pairing because he has a espresso over there, and I could only imagine it goes really well with this cigar.
This is
does.
just.
Yeah,
I wish I had more.
I am shocked how good this cigar is.
Yeah, this
It's
is
surprising.
a really nice experience. I'm loving the aroma at the burn line,
Yeah.
even as we're into the last third here.
No ammonia at all. No sharpness. Am I crazy thinking that this is actually smoking like it's a bit of an aged cigar?
Well, it does have 3 years on it
Yeah.
at this point,
It-
but it's tasting like it
a
has
bit
5
older.
or 6
Yeah.
or 7.
It's really quite sophisticated.
Yeah.
So I've got a I was just mentioning I have a pretty significant tear down the wrapper.
Yep.
From tip to tail of the stick. And
You're holding it together though.
it's there's 1 little millimeter where it's still together at the cap. And
Holding on for dear life.
It's probably gonna.
I would apply some moisture to that entire fissure.
But I'll tell you, this is a cigar though that you want to take down, even
I would.
despite
Oh,
the
I would.
construction
And
flaw.
I will. So that's where I'm going with this. I don't know if it's a construction flaw or what's causing it. It's still smoking phenomenally.
Yep.
I'm just gonna run
course.
with it and
Add some moisture to that. I would lick that.
I don't know
That-
what-
I would. I've done it. It
Dude,
works, guys. It
it's
works.
Like, it's
Just
exploded.
eat-
Add some spit to that.
It's
Just
exploded.
eat it.
Yeah, just eat it.
Just eat it.
It's also hot as fuck.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
So, boys, 4 weeks ago, we talked about the insanity happening in Cuba with the power outage, and we obviously detailed Pagoda's experience with that, and we ran through all everything that was going on there in that episode. And unfortunately, Cuba's woes have continued. Not only does the power remain a huge problem in most of the country, I mean, the rolling blackouts. Some communities are experiencing days without power at a time. We have a friend in Habana that in her area has not had power for 5 days,
Yeah.
no water for 5 days. I mean, it's still a very, very serious thing. They did get some crude oil from Mexico, which I guess has been a bit of a help, but the grid there is just a complete disaster.
They can't get a break. It seems like when the electricity gets back up, another tornado comes through.
How is
Exactly.
How is
So-
this affecting the cigar factories?
They're still
If they don't
operating.
have- they
They're
are
still operating.
It's
Yeah.
on generators.
So some of them have
Yeah.
generators and some operate without power. But yeah, they are still making cigars. Obviously, that's very important to the economy there that they make cigars. I'm sure Habanos is pressuring them to output. But to Chef Ricky's point, shortly after the episode aired where we discussed the power outages, Hurricane Rafael hit the island
That's not
and-
the end of it.
and
though.
and it's not the end of it, but caused some serious
Yeah.
damage to the electrical grid and obviously caused some further power outages. And then there was an earthquake.
Two
Two of them.
Two
A
earthquakes.
5.9 and a 6.8, which if you think about if you visualize the island of Cuba, which is the biggest island in the Caribbean, the very far eastern point, kind of like the boot of the Cuban island, there was a 5.9 magnitude and a 6.8 back-to-back magnitude earthquake
Unbelievable.
that not only obviously rocked Cuba, but it was felt in both Miami
Mhm.
and in the Cayman Islands.
Wow, crazy.
So that also caused damage to
Of course.
the electrical grid and of course, structures and everything else, which are held up, as you know, by
2x4s.
2x4s.
Correct.
As Bam has noted on previous episodes. So
So how does this affect any? Does this influence any feelings of trepidation or fear of going back to Cuba?
for
Yeah.
me, no. I mean,
For me, it's a yes.
yeah, I feel driven to go and tell the story, number one, and do what we
Mhm.
do here.
Giz doesn't mind walking up 15
Bring-
fights.
Nah. Well,
Bring
you
a
know,
flashlight.
he's
Bring
a journalist.
flashlight.
He's a journalist after all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that telling the story is very important. I think a lot of the media out there is telling a limited story, is telling a story colored by the government. A lot of what comes out of Cuba is, of course, the mouthpiece of the Cuban government. So I think telling that story is important in the context of cigar smokers. I think it's important, to tell what's going on there. And also, there's an element of it for me that I want to go and help the people that we know and love there.
Yeah.
I want to bring them supplies. I want to bring them food, medical supplies, things that they need. So to answer your question, Grinder, I still plan on going. It's going to feel different. It's going to be different, but it has not changed my drive to want to go to Cuba.
So I was talking to Lizard Henry, and he's gone with the other lizard in the group to Cuba a few times, right?
Yeah.
And his he was also talking to Lizard Phil, And you know, uh, Lizard Phil is definitely going again. He's going in February for some festival. Henry was like, no chance, no, and I would not have expected that because he's so, he's so in love with the place.
Yeah.
So to hear him say he wouldn't do it, I just kind of wanted to hear what you guys.
Well, I mean, there is a scary component of it. I mean, if the Cuban government runs out of fuel again, the grid goes down, they don't have fuel for generators. I mean, if you're considering worst case scenario as a tourist, what does it mean that the airport isn't operating?
Right.
What does it mean that the hotels, like the thing, Airbnbs, you can't get what you need?
I would be more
There's no
concerned
food.
about unrest. Like,
Oh yeah.
because
Sure.
like when you're that, not that I know, but like I would think when you're that downtrodden to begin with, and then you get hit with this.
So
And it's wave after
And
wave
I
after
had-
wave.
Like,
Lizard Pagoda told us what he went through.
it doesn't take much to
Sorry, go
shimmy it, something to shank somebody in the street and say, "Give me your money." Like,
Sure.
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
So Pagoda was walking the streets with a
Yeah.
buddy of his. No power. It
Yeah.
was pitch black out.
He was
Uh,
fine.
Yeah. He
He was scared, but
he was scared, and rightfully so. He and his buddy were walking through the streets in that neighborhood where El Carbon is located. It's a maze there. And people, they're not going to stay in their apartments in a blackout. Everyone is in the streets. So he's trying to get through. Big dudes are bumping into him. They know that he's not a local. He felt intimidated. And I think this question of unrest, I think that's gonna start generating sooner rather than later.
I think when you're in Havana or in Habana Vieja, which is where Pagoda was
That's
during
right.
this experience,
That's
I feel like that area is safe. It's when you start to get out
Yeah.
of the central Habana area, that's where I think these risks can be.
Mhm.
But there's going to be a point where they get out of the countryside and start coming where all the money is, right?
Sure.
So like,
Yeah.
and I think as like a tourist, you have to be cognizant of that, and the unrest factor is it's, to your point, it's not going to get any better, and you just hope that there is some kind of like steady state that they can get to, because
Yeah, I mean, look, human beings can only take so much. You're
course.
talking about necessities. You're talking about no food, no water, no power.
yeah,
These are the things that we take for granted.
I would be fearful going to Cuba with a bag of goodies, because if they're desperate, they're going to be targeting someone like that's out in the streets doling out goods.
Well, I will say one thing. Our path into Cuba, right from the airport, we're right to our Airbnb. We have our suitcases. Our host is with us. Everything's safe. We've mapped out our trajectory to go to local schools, local medical clinics, and so on. We try to take care of those that are in our local area and not venture so far out of where we're staying. There could be some risk if you go beyond where we are.
Yeah, I
Stay local.
ultimately with Cuba and specifically Havana, I think if you're smart, you're good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think if you're behaving in a smart way, if you're moving in a smart way, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah, so that's a good point.
I think there's a lot of other Caribbean islands that have plenty of power, plenty of food,
Mhm.
plenty of everything that we're talking about, and the unrest and the risk to your safety is 1,000-fold what it is in Havana.
And if
I just don't feel unsafe in Havana.
If you're going to go to Cuba, go with someone that's been there.
Exactly.
That would help.
That's a huge.
That's a key.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I'll make a confession. Like I've been wanting to go to Cuba with you guys for some time. It just hasn't worked out for me personally, right? Knowing this, it does
Yeah, it adds
decrease.
another-
Yeah,
yeah,
it
it
does
adds another
decrease
layer
my
of-
ambition a little bit, because I'm a
Sure.
little like, oh,
Yeah.
and then my wife sees the news article and she's like, "You still want to go there?" I'm like, well,
No, tell her you got
kinda, but
you got Bam Bam by your side. You're good.
those big
Those big
hands.
Not like the rooster choking hands over there, but
I have to say the Cuban people are some of the nicest people that I've ever met.
Oh, I'm sure,
And resilient.
The
and
crime
resilient.
sure,
is
yeah.
I have not ever, 3 or 4 times I've been there, I have not seen any crime whatsoever.
or heard about it.
You could be walking down, out of a restaurant, you come out, it could be like 10, 11 p.m. and people actually come out and they invite you to their house. They don't even know you, right? They're that hospitable. They have nothing to offer, but yet they'll invite you to their house.
They're such a
and
generous
share
people.
whatever
yeah.
they do have.
Yeah, they're so generous. I just don't feel unsafe, but I do think that heeding the warning that Bam kind of laid out, where go with someone, if you're going to go to Cuba, go with someone who's been there before,
Yep.
who knows the lay of the land. I think that's an element that's really crucial. But as far as general safety, even through all of this, I do not worry for my safety when I go there. I'm responsible. I'm
Yeah,
smart.
same.
I keep my eyes open. You know, I don't wear fancy watches. I don't have any, but I don't wear fancy watches. I don't carry loads of cash. I don't flash anything, but I just don't feel unsafe there. So, boys, you know, not to turn this into a political conversation, and it's not, but this is something that is certainly on the mind of Cubans now. President-elect Trump has nominated Senator Marco Rubio from Florida to be his Secretary of State, which is a challenge.
Yeah.
For travel,
For us getting back and forth to Cuba.
for travel,
Yeah.
for customs, for cigars coming in the country, and I would argue most importantly for the Cuban people.
Yeah.
You know, because Marco Rubio is very vocal in his anti-Cuban government thinking, and I would assume, you know, there's a lot of hope that the country is going to be opened back up to American citizens to, you know, go as tourists again, you know, let there be a free flow of money. And it doesn't look like that's going to be happening in the next 4 years. That's for sure. You know, so it's something that, you know, I was reading on Periodico Cubano, which is an independent news source out of Cuba, not influenced by the government. And what they wrote was that Senator Marco Rubio, known for his firm stance against the Cuban regime, could assume the position of Secretary of State in the next administration of President-elect Donald Trump, according to U.S. media. If confirmed, Rubio, of course, would make history by becoming the first Latino to occupy this position, and at the same time could directly impact travel and immigration policy to Cuba. This is very interesting. During his political career, Rubio has been a persistent critic of those Cubans who, by benefiting from regulations such as the Cuban Adjustment Law, where they are able to obtain permanent residence, which like a green card, but then are able to return to the country where they came from. So they're asking for asylum, they're getting a green card, and then a few months or years later, they go back. Obviously, why are they going back? To take money and supplies and to help their families
Sure.
still in Cuba. But he has been very against that. And he said recently, rhetorically, how is it possible, quote, how is it possible that someone fleeing persecution returns to Cuba a year later? We cannot ignore that. Some go to Cuba several times a year.
It's so
This raises
short-sighted.
a lot of questions about the nature of those trips.
That's a very short-sighted comment. He doesn't understand every person that we've talked to that got out of Cuba, that has gone back. It's like you said a moment ago, they go back to help their families.
Yes.
Otherwise, they can't survive. Very short-sighted comment.
I agree. And what concerns me is even, you know, we've talked about this. When you travel to Cuba, you have to choose one of 12 general OFAC licenses. The one that we choose is called In Support of the Cuban People. And this seems like an attack on that, you know, because when we go, our intention is to help the people that we meet and the people that we see there. You know, it's just, I'm a little concerned about how this is going to impact things, especially since he's a Cuban American. And where he's from in Florida, in the Southeast United States, there's a lot of
Yeah.
Cuban Americans who are
Rightfully
rightfully
and staunchly against Cuba.
yes,
and the
because of
regime.
what happened to their family a few
Sure.
generations ago.
Sure.
You know, so it's a really troubling.
But there's such a fine line. My heritage, where I come from, there's a lot of turmoil there. There's a lot of violence, and
Sea caucus?
yes,
Newark.
you know. But I want to go back.
Yeah.
I want to support those people. I have extended family there that we stay in touch with, but I've never been back because it's a little dangerous. I have to think that some of the Cuban Americans that live here in the States, in Florida, they have to have some sense of wanting to help the people that are there, regardless of who's running the country.
I agree.
That's, I think, where the thinking should be. Because you're not going to get rid of the regime. They're going to be there. Try and help the people.
So another note that they said here, the economy of the island, largely dependent, of course, on U.S. tourism, and the travel of the Cuban economy in exile would be severely affected if restrictive policies were restored. The senator for Florida has pointed out that the business done with the Cuban regime, especially by businessmen who travel frequently, is a betrayal of the Cuban people. For him, these trips that we've talked about represent an indirect support to the economy of the authoritarian government in Cuba.
We're going to have to send Lizard Senator down to speak with Mr. Rubio.
Now we're talking. Can we record that?
I think you can, and it's recorded now. I think that's the move, boys. What happens when the famine and disease start creeping in, and all the kids that they don't have access to food, they don't have access to water, you can't go to the hospital because they don't have power. What happens when sickness and death starts to creep in and those numbers start to escalate? Doesn't that get noticed? Won't that get noticed?
It always gets noticed, and we always give money and aid, and that's how
I don't
it
think
goes.
we can't give aid to Cuba as it stands right now. We can't do that.
We give aid to a lot of regimes that have less than like very, very malevolent intent to the United States, and we still give aid to those people.
Yeah.
And Cuba is not a threat.
Yeah, they're not
to the American.
That's true.
So like, I don't think that's in the zeitgeist of this for the agenda for this administration.
Right.
I hope so.
No, you're right.
I hope so. I hope we're talking worst case scenario and we never see it. But
yeah,
I would like to see some of these restrictions lifted so that the
course.
Cuban people can benefit.
Now, having said that, he is a Cuban American, first Latino, in the as a Secretary of State. He's going to get people coming knocking on his door. Some Cuban Americans down in Miami saying, "You got to do something. Fuck these people." Blah 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 blah.
That's true.
So. You never know where it could go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
Good point.
it just seems that in the last 2-3 years, the country has gone worse. Things have gotten worse for the people. Every time you go there, there's a different challenge. Like the first time we went, there was no issue with power. There was, power wasn't out.
So look, Gizmo and I went prior to you guys going. That was how long ago?
Over 2 years.
Over 2 years. And since then, we've been back 5 or 6 times. You've been there, Giz, more than any of us. You're right. Every single time we go, something new, some hurdle, some challenge, some disaster has hit these people.
Yeah, and there's no solution for it.
No, it's getting worse.
I mean,
worse.
Rooster, you're right.
Yeah.
Some of these things are some of these things are divine. Like you can't, like you're in the middle of the Caribbean, you're going to get a lot of storms.
But what they're going through, it's almost biblical. Pestilence is next. That's coming. Disease is coming. Then what do you do?
Yeah, it's not good.
No.
So anyway, Cuban woes continue, and it's sad to see. And as we continue to try to communicate with our friends there, it just seems like everything is getting worse, slowly and progressively. It's just getting worse.
I think in the next month and a half, you're going to hear a lot more stories about people exiting, especially with the intent of President-elect Trump and what they intend to do with the southern border and immigration overall.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty clear mandate on immigration. They're not going to miss that step.
Yeah.
So if you want to get out of Cuba now, you probably need to get out of Cuba now. If you want to get out of Cuba ever, let's put it that way. You should
Now's the time.
Now's the time.
Mm-hmm.
Shit got heavy quick. Any more listener emails?
I will say,
tequila's flowing tonight, boys.
I did want to share. We got some wonderful emails after our Cuban episode, and I want to highlight one that I think encapsulates the sentiment of our listenership and what people had said. And this is from Lizard Enrique. He wrote, "This episode was terrific and moving and funny and heartbreaking. The Lizards handled this subject matter of the grid failure with gravity, empathy, and humor. It was a tough balancing act, but it was well done. It was another great episode." And we got a lot of email. I'm not going to read them all because it says very similar things, but I just like the way that Lizard Enrique said that. So thank you to him, and thanks to everyone who listened to that episode and wrote to us. And we had a lot of folks sharing their own stories of being there recently or being there currently.
Yeah.
And it's just more of the same.
I have to say, I didn't go down with you guys, but as the listener may know, or maybe may not know, we record in advance, right? And that's how you as a listener know what's coming up, because we record it, we have a plan, and we stage these things. Gizmo came back from Cuba and was like, we gotta record, we gotta get this out now. We can't let this be stale. We can't have this come out in 3 weeks. This needs to be live. And to hear it, to see it on the news, to talk to you guys about it, in our chat and when we saw each other, and then to hear it on the pod. I wasn't there for the session, but to hear it on the pod, it was cool to like, hey, I was kind of like in some ancillary way a part of this, and it brought me into it, and you could the empathy, as we mentioned in the email, was abundant, and it was pretty cool to listen to.
If you remember, we had some hesitation early on,
Yeah.
not knowing how to approach this. How
Sure.
deep do we go?
And-
I'm glad we took this approach.
And the other thing I want to shout out too, and I got this note on a Zoom call I was on. Someone noted how thoughtful Pagoda's words were in that episode, because obviously he was the one
He went through a
who
lot.
actually went through
Oh yeah,
a lot,
more than any of us.
more than any of us. Certainly, as far as a tourist goes, went through the most. Not compared to the Cuban people, but got a really couple of nice comments about Pagoda. So I want to shout out Pagoda and him sharing his experiences and some of his thoughts and what he said, on that episode. I mean, it was really nice to hear Pagoda
Yeah.
really, really stand up and
the crazy
share
thing
his
is,
story.
he was in Cuba without his shank. No shank in hand.
But
He
look,
was he was naked.
He's a lizard that kind of just goes with the flow.
That's
does.
true.
He does.
Not many things bother him.
That's
can-
true.
he
That's
can-
a merit.
That's
a true merit.
It's a good thing.
It
He
is.
can adapt in
Yeah.
life.
He can
you know?
adapt.
Oh yeah.
Give him a couple of beers, a couple of cigars.
A couple Stellas.
Whether
14,
He's
15.
good.
He needs about 15.
he can go 24 hours without food, no problem.
Correct.
All right, boys, we're coming to the end of our evening. Any final thoughts here on the tequila and the cigar before we move into our ratings?
Just wonderful
Just
cigar.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the flavor notes were very present and abundant, very full.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's full flavored, but it's full flavored, not
Not
full bodied.
full-bodied.
Yeah,
Yeah.
excuse me. I did have a bit of a construction issue, but it's not been deleterious to my experience. It's been fine. I've hardly noticed it. Bam, thank you for that. But I don't know the last time I've had such a flavorful Cuban cigar. And they're all we all love Cuban cigars, but this one really kind of, the difference in floral, the baking spice, the apricot, and generally just the burn was wonderful. I had such a rough time in the beginning, and it corrected itself
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
I'm honestly surprised that you're taking that down to the nub. I
Yeah.
mean, how many times have we had cigars on this podcast with construction issues,
Sure.
with wrappers blowing up, we having to use the perfect draw, and then it ends the night?
Yeah.
I mean, so many times
You
one
know-
or two guys have put it in the ashtray. To see you taking that down to the nub,
The
despite
reas-
all that, is
there's a
pretty
reason-
wild.
The reason is there's no harshness to this cigar.
Yeah.
And I literally have a half inch in my fingers. There's nothing negative about it.
I mean, I'm
Down
not really
to the bloody end, it's
so
incredible.
I'm not even getting much of the wrapper right now, right? Because it's all flayed and shit, and like that's where most of the flavor is, and it's still amazing at this stage. Flayed wrapper, it still tastes wonderful. It's lost a little bit of its luster, but not much.
We have never had a better regional.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is a good
No,
one.
this is outstanding. It's
Yeah.
honestly the best regional I've ever had, and I'll go out on a limb and saying it's probably one of the best Cuban cigar experiences that I've had in a long time.
the
long
last-
time.
the last time I had a really good regional was the LGC España. Do you remember that one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, that was
like a
amazing.
short robusto.
Short Robusto. Yeah.
All right, boys. So before we get into the cigar rating, we have to start with our tequila rating tonight on the El Tequileño Platinum Tequila Blanco. Bam Bam, you're up.
Yeah, so I'm at a 10, under $50 for that bottle. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Buttery, creamy, the minerality, very sophisticated, complex tequila. Delicious
Absolutely.
experience all around. 10.
All right, Grinder.
I'm at a 9. It drank wonderfully. It was so smooth. It tastes like a nectar, it tastes sweet, but there's that little bit of like biting minerality. And this is a very easy drinking tequila. You don't need ice, chops to
Never.
Chef Ricky.
Not even a chip.
No, not at all. And this is a Blanco. Like it's not. It's usually associated with you have to temper it down a little bit. The reason why it's a 9, not a 10, I think I look at the Uno. I give that a 10. There was just a little more flavor, a little more complexity, a little more going on that kept me wanting to discover more. And this one was wonderful. It was straight line though. I kind of got everything out of it after the first couple sips. And it just balanced very well with the cigar. And I thought they blended, It was a nice marriage of flavor, and it didn't take away from the cigar. It didn't add much to the cigar, but it just kind of melded nicely.
All right, Chef Ricky.
Yeah, so for me, I was at a 9, because I like Grinder, am craving some of that brightness, some slight acidity. It was super creamy, but I'm gonna give this a 10 because I think they
Wow.
delivered on exactly what they're aiming for here. Um, you know, this is a brand that's been around for many years, doing the right thing without the pomp and circumstance, and now they're finally getting some time in the limelight. Yeah, I think this is a 10. This is a must try. This is a must get. It's approachable. This could be an everyday drink. It could be just as delicious in the summer as it could be in the fall or winter. It's really a versatile blanco where it just never feels out of place. And I would even say I think, putting this, I think a lot of times people look at blancos and they want to put it in a cocktail. This is almost a blanco that you have to sip neat, because it is so rich and balanced that it might get lost in a cocktail with too much acidity or additional sweetness or whatnot. So perfect sipping blanco, beautiful price, beautiful delivery. Is it as bright as like the Uno? No, it's not. But I don't think that's what they were going for here. So it's a 10 for me.
So I'm also at a 10. I've loved this from the first sip. I thought it was brilliant. I really loved how creamy and smooth it was. Yet on the nose, there was floral. I do agree with you, that comparatively, a little bit more brightness as you described it might have been great for it. But for what this is, how it paired with the cigar tonight, I thought it was a brilliant pairing
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
cigars. And again, we found another Blanco that performed brilliantly at a very accessible price point, which also is factoring into that 10 that at that price, I think this can't be beat.
Yeah, I agree.
It's pretty amazing. So, boys, that puts the formal liquor rating tonight on the El Tequileño Platinum Tequila Blanco at a 9.8, which, by the way,
Excellent.
matches the Uno Dos Tres, the Uno Blanco that we did a few weeks ago, also from Blizzard Mike. Identical score, also at a
Yeah,
9.8.
I think the other lizards are going to love this
Yeah.
when we break this out again.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
I agree, and I think we should.
We should.
Lizard Mike, you're the man.
Yeah.
Lizard Mike is great.
Good recos,
He's
man.
killing it. Keep sending.
Yeah.
All right, boys, it's time now for the formal lizard rating tonight on the San Cristóbal de la Habana Saudade Edición Regional Portugal. I can't pronounce that. I will get it by the time I record the intro. Rooster, you're up.
This San Cristóbal Saudade
There you go.
is excellent. This is one of the I would say one of the better regionals that I've had in a very long time. This cigar by San Cristóbal, I mean, whoever blended this, kudos to him. This needs to be a regular production Robusto that they
Sure.
need to come out with. They don't really make a lot of cigars. They do make a lot of regionals, but I think this blend in a regular production would be a home run.
I think it would be a home run across multiple marcas if they approach all the cigar manufacturing the way they approach this cigar.
Agreed.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, but I think, the price point, where it's at right now, I mean, at $50,
Yeah.
it's a bit high.
Of course.
But I think somewhere around like between $25 to $30.
Well worth it.
It's absolutely worth it. And the cigar, I mean, it had a little bit of a burn issue, not a burn issue, but more like the wrapper cracked towards the end. Grinder also had an issue with the wrapper a little bit, but the wrapper is very very thin, so
Typical.
it can easily be cracked. But had no effect on the flavor. I mean, incredible flavor. I'm still smoking it. I'm the last one smoking it. So, I mean, it's an awesome cigar. It's a great cigar. So I'm giving this a 9.
All right. So I'm also at a 9. I think the thing that took it down for me is the price point. I'm not going to seek out this cigar. I don't know when I'll have another one, if ever, because I just don't think at that $50 price point that's something that I'm going to try to obtain or reach for. Obviously, if it was given to me, I'd be thrilled. But I thought the cigar performed brilliantly. I thought it was a really good cigar. It tasted great. Comparatively versus other Cuban Robustos, I don't think it reaches that greatness level. I think it was really, really damn good,
I don't know.
but it's not great. And I think the price factors in, but the flavor was fantastic. What a departure from some of the other San Cristobals we've done. What a departure from some of the other regionals we've done. It was a really, really pleasant cigar, and I'm very, very happy with it. So it's a 9 for me.
Do you think it has a good aging potential?
we never know.
What I wonder? It's funny you asked that, Rooster. For me, I think that right now, I think it might be kind of at its, like, it's hit its stride right now. Like, I don't know if there's anything more I could want from the cigar other than a lower price point
Yeah.
and a little bit more, make it a little bit more accessible.
So does age create richness in a Cuban cigar?
Sometimes.
Yeah, very limited and rare to see that. Usually
it brings it down.
They usually level out and get creamier and a bit more smoother and more elegant, but the flavor does dissipate it over time.
I mean,
most Cubans.
I think the floral notes on this most of the cigars with floral notes age really well. I mean, from my experience, like the LGCs and stuff.
And punch.
That's
and
true.
The punch. I mean, they really do well with some age. So that's why I'm curious, and that's why I would love to see this in a regular production cigar.
Agreed.
Yeah. Very good cigar tonight. So for me, it's a 9. Chef Ricky.
Yeah, this cigar was loaded with flavor. Down to the very end, I freaking burnt like the epidermal layer of my fingers here. It was delicious. And for all the shit that just these limited production cigars get, the LCDH cigars get on our pod, I'm gonna give this one a 10.
Wow.
It delivered. It delivered
for a $50 cigar that you won't ever find. That's a 10.
That's okay.
He might go out and find it.
You know,
He
It's
might try
the
to find it.
experience that he had tonight.
listen,
I'm with you on that.
we gave this tequila a 10, and maybe after this pod we'll never see it again. But it was a delicious cigar. It delivered flavor in a very strong manner. There's something I'm not used to, and it's almost what you don't expect from a Cuban. Cuban is usually a little bit more balanced or creamy, baking. And here you had all of those Cuban flavors, but just super intense all the way through. And I really enjoyed it. I had zero construction issues. My wrapper didn't tear. I kept it out of Bam Bam's big hands, so it was safe. I really enjoyed it. And look, it's a box of 10. So it's not like it is a substantial investment if you choose to get a box, but it's not something that you're not paying $800-$900 for it. So if you really want it, if you really want the experience, it's worth having as a special occasion stick. And I think it's kind of fun to be able to really enjoy a full flavored Cuban, and and it's 40 degrees outside, but it delivered an experience that was really warming and
Good points.
and just
Although I would never smoke this outside.
no, I wouldn't smoke it outside. Just I just it was very full of flavor, with medium strength delivery, and I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that a lot.
All right, Grinder.
I'm usually not a person who will over-index on price because I like to, review the product for the product, not the marketing or how they get to the bottom line on the price point. So if I discount that, which I'm definitely doing here, I'm giving it a 10 because the experience that for what it is, as Bam says, for tonight, this cigar, what I've experienced, that to me is I took this thing all the way down and it was falling apart and it was still smoking phenomenally. And I've been in those scenarios, we all have been, where I've just, ditched it.
So the one thing I want to say on your point about price and marketing and factoring that in, technically from Habano standpoint,
It's
this is a $22 cigar.
That's true.
The secondary market, which they have no control
that's the
over,
problem.
the auction market,
Correct.
that's where it's at 48. Maybe because people have experienced the cigar being good.
The way we've experienced
it's demanding that price, but technically it's a $22 cigar from their standpoint.
So I mentioned before when we did a quick synopsis or summary of the cigar, the flavor profiles that I was getting, the nuance, the variability but it was still consistent in those different tastes. It really shined for me, and the experience. I couldn't believe how well it touched up itself. After the start it had. So the construction to me was good despite the thin wrapper. I think you just get that with Cuban cigars. You can't avoid that. It's going to happen here and there. So yeah, they knocked it out of the park for me. It's a 10.
Yeah, and look, you have the Davidoff Maduro out there, right? It's a $50 stick.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the fact that it's a Davidoff, I mean, and it's a good stick. Why is it getting that price?
Sure.
Right. This is a cigar that, as you said, the MSRP on it is $22. On a secondary market, it's getting a higher price. But
we're not chasing that Davidoff Robusto.
No, we're not.
Unless we can find a deal.
We're not.
Because it's just so expensive.
Yeah. But this cigar delivered, and I don't know if it's because I'm sitting in senator's seat. I'm a little inspired, but yeah, no, I think it was, it's well worth it.
Yeah.
All right, Bam Bam, you're up.
So
tiebreaker.
I'm more than a little frustrated tonight with this cigar. I want to give it an 8.
Wow.
That's not my rating. I want to give it an 8 from the perspective of the unavailability of the cigar because it's a regional. Why can't Habanos produce something like this on a more consistent basis?
It's frustrating.
It's extremely frustrating. I want to enjoy, I love all my Cuban cigars. We all have great collections, but I rarely get to sit and have that Vitola and get the experience that I had tonight in any other boxes of Cubans that I have in my tower. And they're all great cigars.
So doesn't that mean the cigar deserves a higher score for that?
Yes. And you've mentioned it earlier. I want to rate the cigar for what it is. Maybe 100 and some odd episodes ago, I never ever factored price in. As price increases have come and gone through the Cuban catalog, it's become a factor for me, along with the availability. So I'm pissed off. I want to give it an 8, but my rating tonight is a 9 because I love the cigar so much. I can't give it a 10 because of the price, because of its unavailability. How much we've completely shit on most of the regionals that we've had. It's the best regional that I think we've ever had and probably will have. I challenge anyone to find another regional that's this good. You're not going to find it. It's very rare. There's frustration there. It's awful from the point of view of manufacturing and production. So I'm at a 9. I love the cigar. Great night.
All right, boys. That puts the formal lizard rating tonight on the San Cristóbal de la Habana Saudade Edición Regional Portugal at a 9.4.
Yeah, that's very high.
Which
excellent. Look, it tasted that.
For San Cristóbal, that is the highest rating we've ever had on a San Cristóbal cigar from Cuba.
What was your rating again?
My rating was at 9.
So look, the flavor commanded that rating.
Yeah.
But all of the other factors, which is the reason why you and I weren't at a 10.
Yeah, and also the fact that, like I said, I don't ever see myself having the cigar.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go out and chase it at that price, and it's very limited. Only 8,000 boxes made, so
correct.
It's really tough. So, boys, let's compare that to the other 3 cigars we've done from San Cristóbal de la Habana. La Punta on episode 32 scored a 5.9.
That's a good fertilizer cigar, by the way.
By the way,
it grows really good tomatoes.
We have another one. What's funny about the La Punta, Tuxedo Timmy sent us La Punta.
Oh, I look at it almost.
Another one.
I look at Tuxedo Tim. I look at that cigar almost every day.
So that's going to be the next San Cristóbal we do. Actually, it was supposed to be until tonight when I had my little brain fart. But that was a 5.9 on episode 32. He sent us some more, so we're going to try that one again. On episode 94, the Edición Regional Hiramau Malaya scored a 5.8, even worse than the La Punta. And that cigar, the Hiramau Malaya Edición Regional for Malaysia, is the sister cigar to this, released in the same year, same time frame as this one. And finally, the El Principe, the little one, on episode 132, scored a 9.2.
Yeah, that was delicious.
So this scored 2 points better than that.
Yeah.
So all in all, boys, a great night tonight. Of course, we have to thank Lizard Pablo for sending us these great cigars.
Excellent cigar.
Lizard Mike, again, for sending us this wonderful tequila.
Excellent tequila.
Talk about batting 1,000. Lizard Mike is batting 1,000.
True. And tonight's experience was delicious all around. Just fantastic.
Wait, we didn't rate the Topo Chico.
I wanted to rate the Topo Chico. Topo Chico is a 10.
It's a 10. It's a 10.
It's a 10.
This is great mineral water.
I love the glass
easily
bottle.
the best mineral water out there. Yeah.
And we have to shout out Lizard Bo, our Lizard of the Week. Thanks, of course, to him for writing in. We always appreciate a good email, especially when it blasts a lizard. I think Chef Ricky got a little accountability tonight on additive-free.
Chef was fighting back, though, a little bit.
No. Look, he put out some great facts out there. It was a great email.
Did he mention which Michelin star restaurant?
He didn't. No, I can ask him.
I would take an expert in tequila on a judgment of tequila than over an expert in wine on a judgment of tequila any day. So Chef Ricky, I think you still have the upper hand in my book.
I appreciate that.
And of course, boys, we have to thank our sponsor, Fabrica 5. They're a great partner to us. And great night, boys.
Yeah.
Great conversation. Great pairing. Wow. Both of them were great. And we'll see everybody next week. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for joining us. You can find our merch store and ratings archive at our brand new website, loungelizardspod.com. That's loungelizardspod.com. Don't forget to leave us a rating and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. If you have any comments, questions, if you want to reach out, say hello, tell us what you're smoking, email us, hello@loungelizardspod.com. You can also find us on Instagram @loungelizardspod. We really appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week.